Hi, welcome to the BD Roundtable. We're here today with Stephen Revell and Philipp Thurner to talk about why law firms must take referrals seriously, how they can expand their existing referral network, and how business development teams can help implement change. Now, this session contains an extended roundtable session where we get into a little bit more detail about the referral network process. So if you want to watch that extended version, head on over to bdroundtable.com. When you do, you get access to our private Slack group community, which is full of legal marketers like yourself. Now let's jump into it. So Stephen, I get over to you. Like I mentioned before, the BD teams traditionally don't really have much interaction with the referral program, and if they do, it's mainly tracking. Let's hear a little bit about your experience about why law firms, especially now, need to develop some sort of program and really stick to it.
Yes, Will, very happy to talk a bit about the strategic underpinnings of it. Certainly the role that business development can play, and more generally, how you should run a referral system. I prepared a few slides just to bring a bit of structure and for people to have some sort of takeaway. And I think, Will, you're going to share those. As you were saying, traditionally, and we'll go to the first slide, Will, traditionally, law firm relationships have not really been seen as part of the BD role. And I strongly believe that those relationships should be integrated into the business development role, as I'll come on and talk more about, because it is directly important to your existing client base, and I'll explain that. It indirectly can lead to new clients through referrals from those law firm relationships. And thirdly, and I think possibly the most underused element of it, is you can actually use it as a mechanism for targeting new clients. So if you see inbound investment coming from a particular country, you should be reaching out to your law firm relationships in those countries and saying, what can we do to attract more clients from that particular country, because we see they are investing in Thailand, for example. So really thinking about using those relationships to drive new matters and new clients. As you've hinted at, Will, I think the traditional state in many law firms is no system around referrals, being left to individual partners or lawyers. I think the firms where there is a culture of going and asking BD are in a better shape. The ones that I worry about, and I remember, going back many years in Freshfields, you would get an email to the whole firm saying, does anybody know a lawyer in? And that's maybe 20 years ago now. But, that was the sort of thing that was done. So there was no centralized system of identifying the firms where you have the relationships. And certainly the idea of tracking those referrals is unheard of. At best, there are stories, oh yes, we've sent quite a bit of work to that firm. But the idea of turning that tracking of referrals into a conversation, either we've sent you a lot of work, but you've not sent us any, is not on many firms' agendas. And I think it needs to be seen, in a sense, as a firm asset, as a firm responsibility. And I think business development is the right place to anchor it, because it has to be around an organized, firm-based approach, not just an approach by individual lawyers using different firms all over the world. I think it's really important in terms of your existing client base to show those clients that you have the international reach. I think we all see clients becoming much more international in the way they work. They're selling abroad. In many cases, they're looking at M&A opportunities abroad. They're looking at investors from abroad. So they're interacting across geographic borders much more extensively than they did 10 years ago for sure. But I think, although there's much talk in the press about COVID being a force against globalization, I think we're going to see continued globalization, but in a different way. It's going to react to some of the things, supply chains we've all read about, but that won't stop that globalization, and therefore it won't stop your existing domestic clients' need for advice about overseas. And you can do one of two things. You can say, oh, if you're doing something overseas, we can help you. Or you can say, I'm sorry, we know nothing about foreign countries. And how does that go down with a traditional client? You can imagine. And I think, although it's a side point and goes again to the core relationship that firms are trying to build, this so-called deal counsel role. Yes, you may be making an acquisition abroad, but we know how you like to make acquisitions. We know the sorts of agreements. We know the sorts of things you worry about. We can prepare the agreement for you. We can work with you, and we will bring in one of our relationship firms from that country to make sure we get the local law right.
Yeah, Stephen, if I can just interject. So I think that's a really interesting point, being that sort of deal counsel, because one of the advantages of working in a law firm is you really know that client's business generally, right? You know what issues that they're facing. And if you have these relationships in other countries, you can say, hey, we're here to help you. And that sort of relationship could be very beneficial. And that's maybe an added value that you can offer or demonstrate that other firms don't have. So that's a good differentiator for you as a firm.
I agree, Will. I think it does two things. It not only hopefully generates some extra work, but also it deepens the relationship. Even if they say, well, no, thank you, we'll go directly to a firm. You've shown you've cared, you've understood. And I think it's both about relationship strengthening and work generation. If you can flip to the next slide, Will. So just to reiterate that, as I say, I think the most important aspect is clear positioning with your existing clients, looking for those deal counsel roles and reinforcing that you can help. And again, and you've referred to this, Will, too many lawyers think of themselves as, I'm qualified in this jurisdiction, that's all I can think and talk about.
Stephen, I think there's two good examples, actually. Sorry for interrupting it, but with a very practical example, Nishimura Asahi is one of the firms who really advertises their services as well, and they call it a one-stop shop internationally. And Taylor Winters in the UK, they have also started 2 years ago branding their offering, which is their kind of their deal counsel role offering to their clients, and call it integrated international counsel, and as a one model. Right? And they're kind of very much branding it and being very clear with the role to offer this to their clients. And they've done really well.
Yeah. But sorry, just for this, I do want to make it very clear, this deal counsel role, it's more than just being a middleman and coordinating the efforts between the company and where you are versus internationally, right? I mean,
yeah, it's not a black and white. So the reason I put those two bullets on the slide, the ability to help and the deal counsel role, what you described initially is the ability to help. I can introduce you to a great lawyer in this country who can help you. And that to me is the baseline. You should be doing that for every client. But and there's then a spectrum of, can you help further by turning it into a deal counsel role? And that could also be on a spectrum of, we've drafted the agreement, we've negotiated it with the other side, and the local law firm has just given an opinion that it's all valid. Or it could actually be more like a co-counseling role, that you attend the meetings on behalf of the client, but the other lawyers are doing the drafting because it's so uniquely local in some way. So deal counsel is a spectrum, not a black and white, but this ability to help to me is a baseline. And again, that's why you need to take identifying your relationships so seriously. Because if you're saying to a client, even if it's just at the ability to help phase, oh yes, I know a good lawyer in Thailand, I'll introduce you. Two things can go wrong. The lawyer you don't really know, so there's no proper handover of the matter. They say, oh, I've never heard of Stephen Revell, but we'll see if we can help you. So you immediately get off on the wrong foot. And secondly, they could be not the right lawyers for that matter. Yes, you met them in a bar and they talked well, but actually they do no corporate work. Yet you've said you're a good corporate client. So really understanding the firms and their strengths is very important, and having a relationship so you get the responsiveness that you can then in turn deliver to your client. And then as you build those relationships, you become much more sophisticated. And this is where BD, I think, can add some serious value, is to say, oh, we've got this referral relationship with this firm in Japan, but we don't seem to be getting much work back. Let's have a conversation with them about the sort of work we would like to be doing for clients from that country. And you actually get into a, if you like, a mining opportunity.
So the BD,
you've got a relationship.
Yeah, so the BD teams are probably the ones who are kind of tracking the, hey, we're not really getting too much back, and they can suggest and recommend, hey, how about we set up a meeting to talk about this, and this. Just sort of push the relationship forward.
Yeah, and it can be relationship driven, but it can also be research driven. Back to my other example, if you see lots of companies from this country are investing in your home country, and have conversations with the law firm relationships and say, what's going on? Why are companies from your country investing in my country? And how can we get in the flow together? There's a role for them and a role for you. So you can have a very collaborative conversation. So it really can be a great mining opportunity. Next slide. I've talked about some of these points about creating a very clear list of who your preferred firms are. And I can't underscore enough the importance of getting that list so that everybody in the firm knows which firms you're trying to build a relationships with and which firm you should be referring work to. And you can do that in several ways.
Yeah, I was just asking on how do you actually do that? How do you start that? Because this is the stuff that I get asked all the time by law firms as well when I speak to them.
Well, let's save that for the Q&A because I've just not noted that down because I want to talk about that. So we'll save that for the Q&A.
Okay, well, I'll cover that in the Q&A, but there are various ways in which you can do it. And, one of the start points is who do you already know? And actually, again, BD can be a driver of simply pulling that list together, having conversations with partners that do cross-border work and say, who have you used in the last couple of years, and start creating a list. But I'll come on to that in the Q&A. I guess the other big strategic question, and this is where I think, again, BD can drive a good debate around it, is do you have a single firm in each jurisdiction, or do you have 2 or 3 firms? And again, to illustrate that by way of example, the story is always around Slaughter and May always had a best friends relationship. And they had a single relationship in each country. As you know, Slaughter and May don't have offices outside of London, and therefore they're very reliant on these so-called best friend relationships. One strong relationship in each jurisdiction. Contrasting that with, if you like, a good friends, so you have 2 or 3 firms in each jurisdiction, which was very much the Freshfield Stronger Together model. And that model was driven by the fact that rarely does one firm have every specialization you need, and B, conflicts. We all know about the problem of conflict. If you've only got one relationship, it might be the wrong firm and they may be conflicted. If you have 2 or 3 relationships, you increase the chances of still having a strong relationship firm do the work. So not least because that's how we built Stronger Together, I'm a fan of a good friends relationship rather than a best friends. Now, having said that, it depends on the jurisdiction. If you're sending, one piece of work every couple of years, one firm is fine. But if you're regularly sending work and you've got clients that are active in that country, then 2 or 3 firms is a much better way forward. And I'll come on and answer some of the how do you start that. But again, the final thought on that is just, and again, I don't really mind if you do it on the notice board, but as Phil will come on to, there are many more sophisticated ways of doing it, but you've got to have a list. And everybody's got to know the list is in the big blue book, or it's in this place in the wiki, or this is where it is. You've got to have the list, and you've got to have everybody knowing there's a list, and it's got to be available.
All right, awesome.
So next slide. We're cantering through this because I think we've covered quite a lot of this. Again, I think business development has a strong responsibility in terms of getting the messaging to your existing clients clear. So when you're making a general pitch or a general conversations with clients, are you even saying, if you do anything overseas, we can help you? Or are you just completely silent to that need that the client has and the opportunity that it gives rise to? So thinking about your messaging to your existing clients, what is your message about how you can help them when they do cross-border work? And similarly, what's your message to inbound work? Are you actually trying to use the law firm relationships that you have to actually drive some additional work, and indeed have the possibility of being the beginnings of a campaign? Back to my example of trying to attract investors from a particular country. Next slide is over to Phil to talk about the importance of actually tracking some of that referral work.
Yeah, easy. Thanks, Stephen. So look, with the tracking, it's really important, because if you think about inbound and outbound, with the referrals and your relationships that you have, that, some you have to help your clients grow international needs, so you can refer it out and you can help your clients. And the other hand, it's to creating more revenue for your firm, right? But if you don't track it, how do you even know who are your referral partners? Who are your relationships? Where does your work go? Where's it coming from? If you don't track it, you're shooting in the dark, and you will always have a completely ad hoc approach. And tracking is actually not that difficult, because you don't have to track every single stage of every single referral. It's primarily a quantitative measure and a little bit on quality as well, to just keep track of it. And I've spoken to many firms, and there's many different ways to track it. Some firms have implemented it in a way that there's just a mailbox where lawyers CC it, and it all goes into the mailbox, and once a month, someone, just a poor soul, has to go through and scroll through all of the different emails and then write it into a spreadsheet. I have seen others who just not even have a shared inbox, but what they did is they just use a convention, a naming convention in their subject line. They always have referral column, and then they write. And then at the end of the month, they just search their inbox and send items for referral in exactly that kind of convention. And then they started counting and writing it down. And larger firms, some of them have systems in place, but the vast majority uses Excel spreadsheets. Larger international firms, they hire full-time personnel, which is responsible for the tracking of referrals. And what they do, they send out an email monthly to the entire partnership. Don't forget to type in all of your referrals that you have done this month.
Yeah, that won't.
It doesn't work very well. I think I've spoken to them, and they've roughly mentioned, because they have no clue on how much it actually is, but they estimate it's probably about 40% of the referrals they actually capture. Tracking inbound is much, much easier than outbound. So most firms are okay with inbound because on the matter opening in their practice management system, they add a field of referral source. And they just make that a mandatory field to say, okay, we've got a new client onboarded, and they type that in. The problem there is it's only a successful incoming referral, meaning there's a matter opening and now I have tracked it. If a matter never opened, but there's still kind of a try to get inbound work and you receive a referral, but it was actually unsuccessful, you don't have that. And if you send a referral, you don't have that either. And just incoming is not enough. It just doesn't work. It gives you half a picture and you don't really know what to do with that.
I agree with that, Phil, but as you say, many firms track that inbound much better than they do the outbound. What I would say is that it's really useful to try and mine that data, even if it's inadequate, as you've just pointed out. Don't ignore it just because it's inadequate. See how you can use that inbound to identify the law firms and identify the opportunities to both build those relationships and get more work.
Exactly. And it's always good to know also, like when you do receive a referral or send a referral, to actually, if it doesn't go ahead because of conflicts, to note it down. So you know, because at least you have tried to refer something, right? It already counts towards like your relationship points basically. Because you've tried, you thought about them first, you're trying to give something to them, but because they're conflicted, there's nothing you can do. You tried to give them the value, but it didn't work out. And then you can also start, getting really good insights of who is sending you a lot of clients where you're actually conflicted. Then you can use that information to actually educate them. Like, okay, please don't send us certain clients because we're always conflicted and it's just, takes too much time. It's a waste of time for everybody involved. Plus also a lot of smaller firms have the problem that with the referrals that they receive, sometimes it's not the work that they actually want to do. And because of that also, they're very kind of, bad relationships what they have with this. Like I think, Stephen, you have mentioned it many times, like if there's like this 5 partner shop somewhere trying to refer a very small client to Freshfields is going to be like, look, this is not really what we want to do, so I'm really sorry, right? This is just not the right relationship. So you have to educate even your network about what kind of clients they should refer to you. And if you track it, at least you do something around it. And yeah, tracking is not that difficult. It just needs to be done. This is the hardest part, probably, cultural change. Like even if you track it in, with an email address, CCing a certain email address in it, it's a big cultural change that they actually do it, that lawyers will CC on every single referral. Yeah, so with that strategy, the first thing, and as you said it, like you always have to start with some sort of tracking because you wouldn't otherwise even know that you're getting good work from Germany, right? But then now once you have it, it's like, okay, we know we get quite a lot of work from Germany, then you have to just look into what kind of firm is it, what's the characteristic of the firm, what kind of client base do they have? It's like, is there any similar firms out there? And then you can simply reach out and you can use directories. Chambers is, a very well-known directory, covers mostly the top firms only. So if you're looking for some smaller boutique firms, it becomes much, much harder. Google is always a way to go. Just Google it. At the end of the day, Google for a corporate law firm in Germany, read about it a little bit and check if you can find someone, reach out. And nowadays that everything is virtual, it's so easy to connect with someone because it's so accepted that I don't actually have to fly over to meet them in person because it's not possible right now. So it's totally accepted to just jump on a Zoom call, which makes it so much easier now. I traveled into my world every single day.
How would you recommend we first approach them? Because no one likes, hi, we're a law firm from Singapore. We're
definitely. Yeah. So the biggest thing with that is don't go into this with this intention of, I want something out of you, right? You never start with, go in with it of building a relationship and not of trying to get a client. Has to be the mindset. I'm not trying to get a client, I'm trying to build a relationship. To build this relationship, you need to get to know a person. And this is how you reach out. You reach out to get to know them. I want to get to know you. Tell me a little bit about you. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and then let's explore, and if it works on a call and you feel very comfortable with it, then a business conversation can start after that. Before, on an individual level, on a personal level, just get to know each other. That's it.
Phil is quite right. I think particularly if you've put a bit of effort into researching, the firm makes sense. They have similar sorts of clients than the ones you've been working for. To actually start the conversation saying, we've been looking at some firms in Germany and we've identified yours as one that might be a good fit for our clients. Can we have a conversation? And why wouldn't a law firm talk back? If you start saying, identified you, we should have a conversation. I think the other important thing, two things. One is the importance of tracking identifies that you may well know that firm in Germany already. A partner, 3 doors to the left may well have met that person, somebody from that firm at the IBA, or indeed have referred work to them. So checking what you know internally. And then secondly, triangulating the connection. Your partner may be the one most active on the international scene, knows a law firm in the UK, and they ring their friend in the UK and say, do you know anybody in this firm in Germany? And all of a sudden, you've got a warm connection as opposed to a cold connection. But as Phil says, don't be frightened of cold calls to law firms.
No.
It's not an issue.
As long as your intentions are okay and good and it benefits both, no one will say no. Some people, yes, they ignore it. We have to live with that. I live with that every single day. I'm trying to get in touch with a lot of people. I am ignored sometimes. That happens. I move on. I try to find someone else. It's them missing out, basically. But as Stephen said, use warm introductions. Go onto LinkedIn, search for the law firm what you have found, see who is in it. Do you already have a connection in that law firm? If you do, reach out via LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great way to actually send a message and start the conversation instead of taking it offline and send an email. Because people are just more used to the messaging within LinkedIn that someone is reaching out, for a connection or for networking, and the mindset is already right. If it's just an email, sometimes, inboxes are busy, right? Especially for lawyers. They might, just miss it, discard it straight away, and it's just not as apparent on why you're reaching out. So LinkedIn is a great way. Obviously, what I have to say, Nextdoor is even a better way because everyone is there to grow their network. So as soon as they do read or receive a message from our system, they know exactly that you're reaching out to build a new referral relationship with them. Makes it easy. There's a lot of things what you can do because after this first conversation that you have with someone, you can just offer a piece of your value, what you have built with your social capital, with your network. You can play the connector role. You can just connect them with someone else you might think is very valuable to them. So you've added some value to them. So that kind of how you slowly start building these relationships, stay in touch with them. And the most important part is you have to show the other person that you genuinely care about the relationship. And the way in how you do that, and I can show you a really good example. A law firm here in Australia, a law firm partner met someone on a networking event, another law firm partner from New Zealand. They got talking and the Australian partner mentioned that his wife was due in like 3 months. It's the first time him becoming a father and so on. What the partner in New Zealand did was amazing. He obviously, after the conversation, set himself a reminder to reach out to the partner in Australia to wish him, the best for being a father. But what he's done is he's actually bought a book, has written a small little note and sent it to the partner in Australia. So after his wife gave birth, he received a package with a little book in it and a card, which was written on it was, "This book has really helped me when I became a dad, like for the first time." And that was it. Since then, every single referral that partner sends to New Zealand goes to that person.
Wow.
That's kind of these little things. If you show that you remember personal details, that shows that you care about that person, about the relationship. That's how you do it. Just generally, you want to build this. So
referrals are just like any other relationship, right? You got to put some effort in.
But the other point I would make is I don't think a business development group needs to see this as something they need to get a lawyer to do necessarily. Yeah. I think as we're seeing, business development professionals appear in more and more firms across the world, there's a lot that business development groups can do to explore whether there's a fit between the firms, and then start introducing, a partner to have a conversation with a partner. But, we know what a logjam and what a bottleneck lawyers can be to business development. So if you're trying to drive some advances in law firm relationships, and you've asked your particular partner to make 3 calls and nothing's happening, connect at the business development level. I mean, in the Stronger Together program, we have some great connections between business professionals all over the world. And not only has that helped drive business, but it's actually created, a mini community within Stronger Together business development professionals who reach out to each other, with problems and with ideas much beyond the relationship of the firm, because those connections have been established within business development groups.
And look, one of the things is also like, once you start tracking this and you start building these relationships, this is then when you as a business development person also can look into kind of the data, what you get out of it, and see, okay, there's a strong relationship on an individual basis. That's what you can use to elevate it actually onto the firm level and institutionalize it. This is how you can kind of promote individual relationships, what individual partners have built and have currently, and actually take those and elevate them and bring them into your firm kind of model and elevate it from an individual to a firm kind of relationship.
Right. So, okay. Thank you so much, Stephen. I'm going to transition into the Q&A, but who are watching on YouTube right now, what's the best place for them to get in touch with?
Well, I've kept my old Freshfields address, so for those who know me through Freshfields, then reach out on that. And then I've set up a law firm advisory company called Making Change Happen, makingchangehappen.com, Stephen Revell at makingchangehappen.com.
Excellent. And Phil?
For me, it's also very easy. It's Phil at nexel.io. And Nexel is with just 4 letters, NEXL. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.